What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. Last week, I figured out how to get the bridge to rotate and plane into the Rockwork. This week, I need to figure out how to connect the two together. I also found a really cool rendering of a building that I want to recreate in Lego for Magito. Plus, in true coconut fashion, I may have found a way to sneak an ATTE and dropship into the model. So, if you like big builds and you cannot lie, don't forget to execute order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. I cooked up some more Rockwork over the weekend, and this side is much more sloped than the other side, which is more layered and flat. Not really sure why I wanted to do that, but it's not a big deal. Mountain faces can change depending on what's eroding them. What I need to do today is figure out how to build this messy section of rockwork around the bridge. The bridge comes in at an angle, which means the rockwork is going to have to follow that same angle to be able to meet up with the other side. I also need to get the rockwork under the bridge to slope back far enough so that it won't run into the bottom of the bridge as I build upward. Gotta love angles. The reason the rockwork starts underneath the bridge and not further back is because I still need it to be close enough to it so that when I put the tunnel entrance in, the entrance and the bridge will fit snugly together. So I need to create a very sharp curve backwards in the rock, which is the opposite of what I've been trying to do up to this point. I've decided to try out these 3x slopes since they have a much shallower angle and are a lot shorter than the 1x5 slopes I have been using. This allows me to shift the rock face further away from the bridge without adding a lot of height to it. So I can repeat the process as many times as I need until I've cleared the bottom of the bridge. Man, I did not think I was going to talk so much about Lego Rockwork in this series, but here I am lecturing away. I find myself breaking down Rockwork time lapses like a sports announcer. To help me know where the Rockwork needs to stop, I decided to build a flat section out of brick to represent where the tunnel entrance will be. This will help me better know what angle I need to achieve with the Rockwork. Now we've got a nice sloped chunk of Rockwork that comes from underneath the bridge and lines up perfectly with its edge. At first, I was hesitant to rely so heavily on one kind of slope to build because that generally creates a really smooth man-made look, but I realized in this case that's actually a good thing because whoever built this had to blow up and carve out the rock to make the bridge fit in the first place, so it's going to look different. The next issue lies within the bridge itself. I haven't finished the underside. Because this bridge is so thick, the bottom of it is a lot lower than the top, and I don't know where to stop the rockwork. So I'm going to rip this thing apart as delicately as I can and give it a juicy bottom. I thought I built this in a way that the wedge part could be easily removed, but I guess I didn't because getting it off was kind of a pain. Nothing too fancy here, I just need to add more wedge plates to the angled sides and plate off the bottom. I'm leaving the middle open since filling it with brick would be a waste of time and parts, plus it would make the bridge unnecessarily heavy. I'm going to store the battery packs for the lights in here, and I've been thinking about that and I have zero idea how I'm going to thread all of those wires through the bridge to get to the battery packs, so I should probably get on that. At last, I know where the bottom of the bridge will sit so I can begin to work on a seat for it. I don't know how deep I'm going to make this flat section for the tunnel, so for now I'm just making it 2 studs wide, just enough so I can see how the bridge and rock wall fit together. I thought long and hard about how I would actually connect the bridge to the rockwork at an angle, then I was struck with a bolt of inspiration. It doesn't need to connect to the rockwork at all. I just placed down a bunch of tile where the bridge will sit, and now it can swing in and slide onto the tiled section and rest there without needing a stud connection. Plus, once the other bridge supports are in, this bridge won't be able to rotate anymore and will be fixed in place. I noticed where the bridge and the wall connect, there's a gap that gradually grows bigger as you move along it. At first, I thought it was because the bridge came in at the wrong angle, but I've seen this problem before. A callback to my Utapau days. When building rockwork, the taller you get, the heavier your build is, and it will begin to lean or sag backwards. I checked, and sure enough, my rock wall was leaning backwards a bit, so I built a couple of big supports and stuck them in where the bridge is, and sure enough, we now have a tight, seamless connection between rock and bridge. Easy fix for a scary looking problem. Having the bridge in its final position and secure is a big deal because it was literally holding up all the rest of the rockwork on this side, which was holding up on the other side, which was basically holding up the entire mock. I'm happy with the techniques used, and all in all, looks good so far. Let me know in the comments if you like what I came up with, or if you would have done it differently. The underside looks great as well. Having the bridge actually sit on the rockwork was good for a couple of reasons. First, it It gives this end something to rest on so it doesn't dip, and from an aesthetic standpoint, it looks like the bridge is actually built and runs deeper into the rockwork and isn't just connected to the side of it. I love how that jog in the rockwork turned out. It looks both natural and intentional. This mock series has been an interesting experience so far. I feel like every problem that arises, I just come up with a solution that is both practical and gives me exactly what I was looking for. I don't say this to brag, because to be honest, I don't know why that's happening. It's not like I suddenly became a genius after Coruscant. In fact, the state of my current life would say the opposite. I wish I knew what I was tapping into so I could apply it to other areas of my life. I was making last week's thumbnail when I made a discovery. I can fit an ATTE on the bridge. This opens up some possibilities. I could potentially have a dropship landing an ATTE on the second bridge to provide some armor support. I think this could look really cool, but might take up too much space. I don't know, let me know in the comments what you think of that. Even if that was too much, I could just have the walker, and even though its middle legs are up on the bridge walls, I think it still looks really cool and shows the adaptability of the walker, and I could have it crushing droids and lights as it goes. There is one problem, however. There's a giant pillar in the middle of the bridge. This will obviously prevent the walker making it all the way across, but it could be used as backup or heavy support to make sure the droids can't retake the bridge. So if I go the dropship route, that would mean around $1,000 worth and 8-ish vehicles in the mock, which would be insane. I don't even know if it can hold that many. Okay, we've talked more than enough about bridges and rocks. Let's make a building. I found this one while I was looking at Megiddo architecture on the interweb. It was designed by someone named Ritter Thomas. They did a few different designs and even rendered a city, which is super helpful. So Ritter, if you ever watch this, thanks. I like the building because it matches the architecture we see on Megiddo, that classic baby toy look. But also it has its own unique shape and style, so it will add some great variation to the Megiddo skyline. The building process started out the same as the last one. Gotta assemble the dishes. Lots of dishes. I'm gonna have to get a bank loan to afford all the quarter cylinders I'm gonna need for this mock. There are some major design differences though. First, the base of this building will be very different from the last one, and the dishes themselves are different sizes and some are built differently. Instead of the whole thing tapering upwards evenly like a Christmas tree, this building has a more drastic change in the size of the dishes, and I'm adding vents as detailing in between some of the dishes for extra detail. The abrupt change in the different levels makes it more interesting to look at, and the top ones all being the same size allow me to make this building much taller. The base was the biggest challenge. It's completely round and has pillars jutting out at all angles. Great, just what I needed, more angles. To tackle this challenge, we're turning back the clock to the days of Coruscant. When I built the Senate building, I used a technique of combining rounded 1x2 plates and 1x1 cylinders to create walls that could bend and become circular. The rounded nature of those parts allows you to create pretty much any shape you want, so I'm going to use that to build a round frame. This will be nice because I can reuse pieces from Coruscant, and I can make the base of this building as accurate as possible. If I want to add doors and windows and later, I can just build them into the flat panels of brick. The pillars weren't too tricky, I just stuck a round stud on the bottom of the ones I wanted to get at an angle. This is just the prototype, so none of the colors or sizes are final. I just wanted to get an idea of what this building would look like in Lego form and what pieces will need to be ordered in for it. I love it. Definitely the cooler of the two buildings, just don't look behind it. Good grief, he's naked! But part of the reason this one is better is I have a more detailed render or image to work off of, whereas the other buildings are just from comics and background images. I have the two buildings next to each other to give you a good comparison, and I wanted to see how they would match up. The core design of the two buildings are the same, which is good. I like the added detailing of the vents in between some of the dishes, although I did forget to add one of the dishes as there's supposed to be 3 of the mid-sized ones. I left the top unfinished because in the render it looks very round. Now I'd have the perfect piece for that. It's basically the same one I have been using, it's just more rounded and taller, but I only have one in my entire collection in any color. And I just lost that one, so I have to order in more. I'm not super happy with how the biggest dish looks. There's a lot of exposed flat surface, so I might add in another row of slopes to get rid of all that flatness. The bottom might be my favorite part of the building. The pillars don't sit all the way under the first dish, but I can either add a slope to the exposed bit or shrink the base so they fit all the way underneath. The circle technique works great for the base, and the stacks of cylinders add great texture and detail to the walls. I might just reuse this technique for the base of the other one. These two buildings are a good start to the city. It's nice to be able to start designing and preparing for it now, because once the mountain is in, I can start building them in their actual size and right colors, and I'll have all the parts already. This is going to be the most complete city I've ever done, since all the structures in Coruscant were so big. I only included parts of them, and it was all mostly a backdrop for the road and Senate building where the battle was. But Megiddo is going to be more like Theed on Naboo. Fancy ornate buildings with lots of smaller roads, paths, and gardens, and hopefully a little bit more color variation. Trust me, this is going to be a full-blown city. The last thing I want to show you is the progress I've made on the UT-AT. I'm building this as part of a separate series which comes out every other Friday. I have part of the main structure built as well as almost half of the repulsors. So far I'm very pleased with it, but the next update is going to be very challenging as I have to design the mess of angles that is the front cockpit area. I was going to make it minifig scale at first, but that was just too big to fit on the bridge and just would look too big for the mock, so I shrunk it down to more of a play scale size. It will be just bigger than the 2013 AT-TE. Sitting here wrapping things up, it honestly doesn't feel like I got a whole lot done this week. I've been really tired recently, not just like the you need to go to sleep and get some rest tired, but a deeper tiredness in the soul, which unfortunately does not go away as easily. So that really hindered how much I was able to do. I also had to do a lot of thinking and planning just to get that little section of Rockwork to slope back at just the right angle to meet up with the bridge. Basically, getting all those sections to meet together at a very certain point took up a lot of time and energy. Plus, until a lot of these larger, big foundation portions are done, there just isn't going to be a ton of building for me to do. But that's how these early updates go sometimes. I'm hoping to get that tunnel entrance in next week. That way I can just cruise through the rest of the Rockwork and get to the more interesting stuff like the city and the main bridge. Next week I have got to figure out how I'm going to run the wires for the lights in the bridge, because I don't want to build the whole thing and then have to tear it up to run the wires. It's going to be so much easier if I integrate those wires into the build as it's coming together. But that wraps up this video. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about everything down below in the comments, and I will catch you next time. But until then, happy building.